All right, welcome back in. Today we're going to be talking about manual release and flexibility. Probably my favorite topic because my background of being a sports massage therapist and working in the physical therapy world, most people are skipping out on this. Most people are focused on just building the muscle, building, but not really focused on the release. The release is the key to avoiding joint pain, muscle cramping, and muscle fatigue. So that doesn't mean that you need to be stretching all day long, but it does mean that you need to supplement in some of these techniques as you are building the optimal body of your dreams. So let's start with flexibility. First of all, what is flexibility in the first place? So now, flexibility of a muscle. Now remember, muscles move the bones. In order to do any action, you have to use a muscle. Now, depending on how much range of motion you have in that action is completely dependent on how strong or how released the muscle is. If a muscle is weak or a muscle is tightened, it's not going to be able to give you the optimal performance. Makes sense, right? So the definition of flexibility is a muscle's ability to stretch over its axis to optimal length in order to improve range of motion. So in other words, saying the more that a muscle can stretch, the more it can allow the joint to move. Simple look of here is a bicep. Now, when the bicep contracts, it brings the bones of this joint closer together. So think about it, the bicep itself actually passes the elbow. So it's going to bring my lower forearm closer to my upper arm. Now, this is the bicep. In order for me to straighten that out, I have to then use the tricep to then extend the elbow. However, the bicep can only contract this elbow to an amount that the tricep will allow it to be bent. Therefore, meaning if my tricep is super tight, no matter how strong my bicep is, it's not going to be able to fully flex the elbow because the tricep is so tight. Just as if you ever had a cramp, right? Let's say my bicep is cramped in this position. No matter how strong my tricep is, it's not going to be able to fully open up the elbow because the bicep is holding it so tight. So I use that example because every single muscle has something called an agonist and an antagonist, meaning the primary muscle we're talking about is the agonist, and the opposite is the antagonist. So in this situation, if I'm talking about the bicep, that's my agonist. My antagonist is going to be that tricep. Same thing if I'm thinking about the chest, right? Now there's a lot going on in the chest, but if I have a really tight chest, it's going to limit how much the muscles in the back of my body can open that arm up or pull that shoulder back. Now I know I keep going back to the example of someone sitting at a desk, but it's because it's so many of us. If you're sitting and leaning your head forward, these muscles are going to become short and weakened. Therefore, meaning that these muscles in the back are going to have to do more work to try and pull your head back. So depending on what we're talking about, there's always an opposing muscle that is going to do the exact opposite action. So flexibility makes sure that no matter what joint we're talking about, you can get optimal range of motion. Now, depending on your injuries and depending on your history, you may have to take some of this stuff slow. That's why it's recommended to go through the therapy videos and attack your flexibility first before we start building on top of that. The last thing I would want you to do is to already have tight muscles that are causing issues and then build on top of that, making them even tighter. So let's make sure that you address everything going on in the body first, then you build on top of that. Now there are two different types of flexibility that we focus on in this program. The first is going to be static stretching, and the second is going to be dynamic stretching. Now, you don't have to understand a dramatic, detailed difference between these two different things. The main thing I want you to understand is that static is going to be anything that's 30 seconds or more. So think about a yoga class, or think about your post-workout, and you're going and holding a stretch for 30 seconds to a minute. That's what we consider a static stretch. So I'm just going to go ahead and say 30 seconds or more. When would you do this? This would be post-workout or on days that you're not working out at all. So you'll notice in the course there's an hour flexibility mobility class. Those are going to be 30 seconds or more. So that's going to be, of course, post-workout, but if you're doing only stretching for the day, So if it's only a mobility day or a flexibility day. Now the opposite side is going to be your dynamic stretching. So dynamic stretching is going to be something that's held from 1 to 5 seconds. And we could even say 1 to 10 seconds. Now, the big thing here is it's not a bounce. So you're not like bounce. You remember like when we were back in gym day, people were doing the cherry pickers where you take your feet real wide and you're bouncing to the floor each time? Horrible stretch. And just to take a side note on this, think about it. We were kids sitting all day long, and that's the first stretch that they would have us do. Just basically yanking those fibers of muscle that have just been sitting all day long. So no wonder we lead and end up with back pain in the future. Of course, it makes sense. From the very beginning, we're being guided how not to do it properly. Now, the reason that we can say that we know it's not proper is because now we've had time to study athletes. So we may as well use the same techniques that the major athletes are using for those of us who are around here just the same. Why not treat your body like the professionals treat theirs? So we have static stretching and dynamic stretching. Dynamic stretching is going to be pre-workout, and this can be daily. So sometimes if you go to a football game early enough, you'll see the players on the side of the field doing the long holding stretches, or maybe they'll have someone working with them, stretching them out, and they're long holding stretches. But then pay attention to what they're doing 10, 15, 20 minutes before the game. Everything that they're doing is dynamic, meaning they're getting the body warm and ready for what it needs to do. It's been proven that if you actually just do static stretches, the muscle will actually lose about 15 to 20% of its strength. So in order for you to then get that strength back, you're going to need to do some type of dynamic type movements to really help you open up those muscles and bring that strength back. So I always recommend if you're doing static stretches, then spend about 10-15 minutes doing some dynamic stretches to get you ready for your workout. What is a dynamic stretch in general? If you're going to be working a certain muscle group that day, your dynamic stretches should be specifically targeting the muscles you're going to be working on. So if you look at our programming, the core workouts, the opening stretching workouts, all that stuff is tailored to what we're going to be working on that day. Even when it comes to your basic exercises like your plank and shoulder tap and knee taps, they're all using muscles that I know are going to be used in the workout that day. So we're truly warming everything up before we actually put more stress onto it. So next we're going to be talking about manual release. Whether we're using foam rollers, therapy balls, or the massage guns out there, I want to make sure that you're attacking this properly. So if you've ever been to a sports massage therapist, you may have had some uncomfortable sessions. I get it, because what we're doing is we're actually trying to push that additional lactic acid out of the muscle, or maybe we're trying to increase the range of motion of a tight muscle. So it's not the most comfortable stuff. It's not your sweetest massage where we're just sending you to la la land and it's super relaxing. This can sometimes be painful. Now, if you've ever had one of those sports massages, you know how incredible the feeling is afterwards. You almost feel like you're in a new body because we specifically targeted the tight muscles and lengthened them, as well as went over the weaker muscles and found ways to stimulate and ignite them. So manual therapy is something that you can do yourself, and this can happen on a daily basis. So in my program here, I teach you extensively how to use a foam roller and how to use the therapy ball. Now remember, the purpose of these here is to release lactic acid. So you may be thinking, what is lactic acid? You ever been working out and you feel that burn in the muscle and you just kind of got to stop? That's because lactic acid is building within those muscle fibers. Because lactic acid is actually a substance that's created based off of the work that you're exerting out. In order to get that lactic acid out of the muscle to be able to do another set or to be able to repair for your workout the next day, we need to send oxygen to that muscle to get the lactic acid out. How do we get oxygen there? We either need to boost our circulation by drinking more water or using a foam roller technique to be able to, think about a sponge, right? If a sponge is full of a bunch of water and you press down on it, all the water is going to escape. However, when you release that, if there is any water around it, it's going to pull it back up. So that's what we're doing in massage, and that's what you're doing when you're doing your foam roller and therapy work. You're actually pushing that lactic acid out of the muscle so that your body can then pull fresh blood, fresh oxygenated blood into that muscle. That oxygen is then going to help get all of that lactic acid out of the muscle to either give you the opportunity to do another set or make sure that you're repairing on your day off for your next workout. So in the course, you're going to be able to see your upper body therapy video and your lower body therapy video. I'm going to show you techniques on how to use the foam roller and the therapy ball, as well as some resistance bands to stretch the muscle, release lactic acid from the muscle, and get the most range of motion that you possibly can. Now remember, in order to get the best effects from all of this, you need to make sure that you're drinking enough water. If you're not drinking enough water, it's going to limit the amount of flexibility that the muscle can have. It's also going to make it very difficult for you to boost your circulation to get that lactic acid out. Water is the key here. Now, we already talked about the different types of water. If you're extremely dehydrated, you may need to also add extra amino acids or extra electrolytes into the water to help you recover as well. You don't have to just sit in soreness and pain. So many people are just like, let me just be in pain until the next workout or until it goes away. You can actually do something. Now, the best thing I think you can do is, of course, get yourself a sports massage from someone who knows what they're doing, because they're going to really target your tightened muscles, your weakened muscles, and try to increase that range of motion to give you a better feeling quality of exercise when you're actually training. But not everybody can get a sports massage every day, not even every week. I do recommend you getting it monthly, but what you do in between is spend the time stretching the body and doing your manual therapy. If there was to be an order for any of this, the best that I think that there is, I would start with the manual therapy. So I would start my workout out by rolling through my shoulders, rolling through the foam roller, feeling what's tight for the day. Depending on what's tight that day, maybe I did a 3-hour drive the day before, or maybe I was standing for 10 hours recording a bunch of videos, or maybe I was sitting at the computer doing a bunch of work for 3-4 hours. My body's going to be impacted in different ways depending on what I do for the day. So the reason I'm doing the therapy first is so that I can become consciously aware of what's going on in my body that day. Many times you can work out some of those pains and tensions just by spending a little bit of extra time on the therapy. Then second, I'm going to go into some static stretches, and I'm going to really try to open up and get more range from the muscles that I just released through my manual therapy. And then third, I'm going to go into some dynamic stretches right before my workout. Now, even if I'm doing like an upper body chest day or something like that, I'm still going to spend some time releasing the muscles of my lower body and stretching them just to make sure that I'm being consistent. But the dynamic stretches really need to be catered to the muscles that you're going to be working out that day. Now, some people are doing their mobility and flexibility days on opposite days of their strength days. So that means you're going to do your manual therapy and static stretches on your opposite day. And if you're getting ready to go walk around town or walk the dog or just go about the day, I still do recommend doing your dynamic stretches to make sure that your body is nice and loose. Just remember though, the main importance there is on your strength days, make sure that your dynamic stretches are specifically focused on the muscles you're going to be using for that workout. So again, the focus is for manual release and flexibility is making sure that you understand the difference between the two different types of flexibility, as well as understanding manual therapy and how we use it. We're using it to release lactic acid. We're also using it to increase your range of motion. Remember, range of motion is basically how far the joint can move and stretch to be able to give you its optimal function. If it's a shoulder and you're trying to reach straight up and down, there's a number of different muscles that may be tight or impacted that can change that range of motion. So we're releasing lactic acid, increasing your range of motion, as well as becoming conscious of what's going on in the body. Meaning, you're noticing what's tight for the day, what hurts, and what needs therapy. Maintaining optimal health is not just a hobby. This is a lifestyle. So this isn't just something I want you to watch today and be like, okay, I got it. You actually are going to have to practice this on a daily basis to make sure that you understand what it is that your body needs. I made sure to put so much into this course that you can try so many different techniques and see what works for you. But I guarantee as soon as you try some of this stuff, you're never going to stop. Because not only are you going to feel the results immediately, you're also going to see the results down the line. It's something that helps now, and it's something that also helps later. So make sure that you check out the therapy videos and you truly understand what it is we're talking about here, but more importantly, you understand how to put it into your daily calendar and your daily schedule. Let's make a habit. Let's make a lifestyle out of these techniques so that it's not just something that comes here and there. I don't want to hear back from you that you received an injury, something that could have been avoided by making sure that we release certain joint pains and certain congestions. Injuries happen, yes, I understand. But let's see if we can be preventative instead of reactive. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. See ya.